Well, okay then. In our last chapter, we navigated what I call the communication storm. Remember? We pulled back the curtain on the endless emails, the constant WhatsApp pings and long distance phone calls across the ocean. And by the end of that chapter, we uncovered a vital truth for everyone building from afar. So communication is not the same thing as clarity. And that is what we pulled back. But between April, I believe, and June of 2025, another lesson was beginning to emerge. Because now money was moving through those same communication channels. We had supplier discussions, and they were intensifying. We had custom material deposits were traveling through the banking networks, and we had project payments, third-party arrangements, and they were all being made to keep things accelerating. And while the financial current appeared to be moving steadily ahead, one critical milestone seemed permanently stuck on the horizon: the roof, the concrete roof. As a fisherman's daughter, I learned long ago that two currents can exist in the same water. One current can be moving quickly, another can be standing completely still. And during the spring of 2025, our dream was caught between those two conflicting tides. One made of money, one made of concrete. Welcome back to Building Back Home with Jackie.
Yeah, man, the vision's strong. Building back home where I belong. Ooh, yeah. But every foundation got a story to tell about the unseen cracks and the caution bell. So come walk with me through the sun and the rain. On Jackie's journey,
I want to remind you that this podcast is shared for educational, informational, and storytelling purposes based entirely on personal experiences and documentation. It does not constitute legal, financial, engineering, or professional construction advice. Certain names and identifying details have been generalized to protect personal privacy. A culture moment. Growing up around the fishermen and fisherwomen in my village back home, you learn something about the horizon. When you stand on the beach, or as we would say, down by the bay, or when you're out on a boat, the horizon always looks so close. You can see it clear as day. You can point your finger right at it. You can sail towards it all morning, feeling the wind in your face and thinking that you're just about to reach the edge. But somehow, no matter how fast your engine runs, that horizon never gets any closer. It shifts, it drifts, it stays out of reach. And that was beginning to describe the roof pour. Every update made it sound near. Every conversation made it sound close. And every month seemed to bring us right to the edge of that milestone. But somehow the horizon kept moving. It was the money tide. Because by April 2025, this project was no longer a dream on paper. It was a fully active construction project. The required contractual milestones completed to that point had been funded. By February of 2025, Phase 1 was covered. By April, phase 2 was covered and some additional commitments had already been made. Some funds were moved even to the next phase because funds were moving through multiple channels simultaneously. There were project milestone payments, supplier purchases, and this was outside of the contract for the supplier purchases. And these were for our client supplied materials, as I told you, the windows and the doors, and later the cabinetry. And in some cases, third-party arrangements helping facilitate payments and keep momentum moving. I want you to write that in the logbook, third-party payments. And I need you to flag it, because at the time, each transaction made sense within its own context, I would say. What I didn't get yet appreciate was how difficult it would eventually become to see all those moving pieces as one complete financial picture. The financial side of the project was becoming more complex. But from where I sat in New York, complexity looked like progress. The ledger appeared healthy and payments were moving, conversations were active, momentum seemed strong. And if you look only at that financial side, you might, I would say, reasonably believe that everything was moving according to plan. The project was no longer in the starting stage financially. Significant money had already been committed, and we had already advanced beyond the required phase 2 payment milestone. I think, though, this is a good time to tell you this. I think this is a good time to tell you that the contract phased scope, so we can see where we are, where we were, or where we should be at this stage. Phase 1 was the foundation to the forced belt beam. We passed that. Phase 2 would have been the first floor to the roof installation. Phase 3 was windows and doors and rendering and the interior and exterior surfaces, including plumbing and electrical finishes. Phase 4 was fixed furniture, cabinetry, finishes and external works, to include tiling, paint, external work such as the driveway and fencing. But what we're discussing today is phase 2. And steel work and concrete roof pour is in this stage. And that's important because if phase 2 was first floor to roof installation, then by the spring of 2025, the question wasn't whether money was moving. The question was whether the project was moving through phase 2 at the same pace. We look at this digital curtain because at the same time, my phone was telling its own story. Photos from relatives regularly, like I told you. Walls were rising, rooms were taking shape. The structure appeared to be growing, to be honest. And when you're building from thousands of miles, these photographs become powerful. They become your connection to the land, your reassurance, I would say, your proof that something is happening while you're at work in New York, for you, if you're building wherever you are. But looking back, I call this the digital curtain because photographs can show progress, but they don't always show project health. Photograph can show activity, but they don't always show verification. Photographs can show what is visible, but they don't always show what is missing. And that stage of our journey we were still relying heavily on what could be seen through a phone screen. So looking at our phones every day, this phone became the project site. Now the roof was like it was in the horizon. And I'm going to put on my glasses because I may have to go to my phone to pull a pic or two. So the roof. Meanwhile, another story was unfolding. The conversation became increasingly frequent. Preparations, coordination, upcoming work. We were scheduling discussions. The roof always seemed to be next week, next Monday, next Thursday, almost ready, coming soon. But first, it was the roof. Then questions started surfacing about the steel. If the roof continued moving further down this calendar, what did that mean for the steel that had already been exposed to the elements? Would it need additional preparation before the pour? Then conversations began shifting towards columns. And for the first time, I realized that one delayed milestone could begin affecting other parts of the project. And this is where my document control compass began moving. One delay is normal because construction projects, they always experience delays daily, every day. But document control teaches you to pay attention to patterns, even in life. Patterns tell stories. Patterns reveal risk. Because as April became May, and then May became June, one pattern became impossible to ignore. The conversations kept moving, but the milestone itself wasn't moving at the same speed. The calendar was beginning to tell a different story than the phone. And this became a lesson of like complexity, because one of the biggest lessons from this period had nothing to do with concrete, had nothing to do with steel or columns. It had to do with complexity, because the larger the project became, the more moving pieces existed beneath the surface. You had payments, suppliers, materials, contractor, schedule, dependency, approvals, procurement, communication. I mean, looking back, I realized I was tracking milestones. What I wasn't yet fully tracking were dependencies. And that dependencies is the things that had to happen before other things could happen. And that lesson will become much more important in the months ahead, because we had multiple payments that are occurring. We had change orders begin appearing. Windows and door deposits were on the way. Exchange rates, bank fees, transfers, they became part of the entire story. So now we started talking about sourcing our cabinetry, because the tide in the supplier's boat, that other WhatsApp that just had me, the architect, and the supplier, that tide seemed so calm, and those conversations were so much calmer. Everything was moving, and I thought, well, if the windows and doors process went so well, let's take the cabinetry through that boat as well. The distinction between the contractor responsibilities, supplier responsibilities, and client responsibilities start becoming less obvious, because the lessons that something was wrong The lesson was that my compass was telling me I needed to start paying closer attention. Let's look at today's red flags. This episode, let's look at this episode's red flags. Critical milestones repeatedly discussed without corresponding completion. Measuring project health through communication volume rather than deliverable completion. Assuming financial momentum automatically equals construction momentum. After saying those red flags, I feel like saying a little Bajan. I'm going to give a little Bajan moment because it feels deep. Bajan WhatsApp pinging. It don't ever shut down. Photos looking sweet from New York to Oysterstown. The contractor texts me, "Yes, Jackie, look a layout." While my bank account bleeding and crying out. I wired down some cash for the phase 1 and phase 2, thinking next week we casting and pouring for 2. But the steel sitting out there baking in the sun and the roof like a phantom, nowhere to turn. Every month it coming soon, but it's sliding away like a trick on the horizon down by bay. Hey, wonders never cease. We still waiting on the line. No roof overhead, but the WhatsApp chat making things look fine. The lessons I learned and I would share with you for this episode. Communication is valuable, but verification creates clarity. A busy WhatsApp chat is not a completed milestone. And when building remotely, your records become your second set of eyes. Money, milestones, and verification should move together whenever possible. Now, here is what I'm going to ask. What would you do if you were funding your project from another country and one major milestone kept moving and moving further down the calendar? Would you continue relying on updates, or would you find a way to verify the reality for yourself? Let me know in the comments. Because by the end of June 2025, months of conversations about the roof had finally produced something we hadn't had before. We had now a target date. That target date was July 2025. So after months of discussions, July had become the month that everyone was now pointing towards. We thought, great, because this is also the month where the district for which I was born, the district where our home is, the community where our family and friends are, they would be gathering. They would be doing the regathering to celebrate what Barbados was celebrating for July 2025. So we made our plans to gather as a family and to make a trip to Barbados for our milestone. That long-awaited concrete roof pour is now here, near, almost can touch it. And for our family, this trip felt different, because the last time I visited was back when I took you in November of 2024 when I traveled alone. That was where I first saw the partial foundation. That was the trip where I first met the contractor face to face. The trip where I unexpectedly met the architect at that funeral. But Luke wasn't there. So everything he knew so far about the project came through the photographs and the updates and the phone calls and observations. But this time, he was coming. For the first time, Luke would stand on the land himself, and for the first time, our last daughter, who was in my stomach 4 months I was pregnant with her when we had paid for that land in 1999, she too would see the family dream taking shape. And for the first time, all three of us would experience this project milestone together. The roof was supposed to be that milestone. The celebration was supposed to be waiting for us. We are also including regathering. And at 1 year, I met the Prime Minister, Mia Moore-Motley, and she was in Oistins. And that made me feel like that day, one day, I will be back home. Why? If the leaders of a land can sit quietly, peacefully, enjoy with no hundreds of security around them, and have fun with the citizens of the land, that's the kind of land I want to be in. And on this day, this here, I wanted to ask her a question, but that wasn't the appropriate time. The question I wanted to ask would be for all of you in the diaspora and me who are building back home, who are the prodigal sons and daughters who ran away but looking to get back home. How are you planning to welcome us? What are the plans for us? And how can we return without having to go through a journey like what I had to go through or what I am going through? What do you have in place for us? And I'm sure that there will be something. But if you have a question, because we going to Barbados to see our roof pour, and you are coming with me. If you have a question that you would like me to ask her, drop it in the comments. For you who are in the diaspora, who are building back home, especially in Barbados, and who are heading back home. So come with us. Luke, me, and our daughter, we are heading to Barbados. But what happened during the July visit is going to change the way you view the project forever. So until next time, keep your compass steady, protect your peace, and keep building back home. Hey, the roof, and we still waiting for water and light. Hey.
From foreign shores, I bring the vision home. Built a legacy from concrete and from stone. Got the blueprints drawn, the white sands calling me. For the diaspora's children, planting the family tree. Building back home against the Atlantic tide. With Bajan roots and all that island pride. Watch the foundation rise, a brand new dawn in store. This ain't just building houses, it's something so much more. Yeah, it's Jackie and Luke building back home in Barbados.